HBL Hair Care, healthy ingredients for healthy hair. Enhance health, reveal natural beauty, and give new life to your hair. Experience the holistic difference of HBL Hair Care.
Hi, welcome to this edition of North County Voice. Our guest today is Gary Gallegos, Executive Director of the San Diego Association of Governments. Thanks for joining us here on North County Voice. Why don't you start, Gary, by telling us what the San Diego Association of Government is?
Well, first, thank you for having me. But in terms of the San Diego Association of Government, there's 18 different cities within the county of San Diego, everything from Oceanside and Vista and San Marcos in North County, all the way to Chula Vista in South County. And SANDAG is sort of that big table where all 18 cities and the County Board of Supervisors come together to work on regional issues, primarily transportation, but not just limited to transportation, housing, open space issues, shoreline preservation issues, a lot of demographics issues. And so it's kind of the big table where the 18 cities come together to work on issues that are, of really importance to the whole San Diego region.
How are the members of the board decided upon?
So each city council self-determines who's going to represent them on the SANDAG board, and then the County Board of Supervisors has 2 seats. One of them is from the unincorporated area, and the other seat represents one of the supervisors from the incorporated area.
Does it go on the one city, one vote rule, or is there a weighted balance?
Well, so we have a bicameral system, kind of very unique in terms of, and it was meant to address the issue of, you have our largest city is San Diego with about 1.3 million residents. Mm-hmm. Our smallest city is Del Mar with about 4,500 residents. So, how do you construct a system that's fair for the little guy and the big guy? And so we have a bicameral system where every city gets a tally vote. And so that looks like our Senate, right? Every state gets 2 senators, whether you're Wyoming or California. But then simultaneously, there's a weighted vote, and the weighted vote's based on population. So the city of San Diego gets 40% of the 100 weighted votes. Del Mar gets 1. And for something to pass at SANDAG, it has to meet both tests simultaneously. It's got to be a majority of the jurisdictions representing a majority of the population.
So I would imagine Oceanside's in at least the upper half, if not the upper third of size of those government 18.
Yes, and so we have, City of San Diego is, of course, the biggie at about 1.3 million residents. But then, you have another group of cities that are 200,000 to 150, and Oceanside fits in that category.
Okay. Now, one of the things that we were talking about before the show is that regionalization, your regional board, regionalization is important beyond what a lot of people think it is, and it's becoming even more important due to changes to the California lifestyle. Can you fill us in on that?
I think, John, a perfect example is we recently conducted some studies and were able to map data that we got right out of the Census Bureau. Where in San Diego today, there's about 1.4 million jobs that are happening every day in San Diego. And that 1.4 million jobs generates about 3 million trips a day.
No wonder I can't get anywhere.
So there's a lot of people needing to do lots of things all the time. But what's interesting in the analysis that we did is over right around 70% of the people live in one city, but they work someplace else. So people that live in Oceanside, might be working in Carlsbad, or they may be working in Sorrento Valley, or they may be working in Escondido. And so life is complicated, and people are living in one place and working in other places. There's, dual income. Sometimes the kids are working. And, the idea of putting the house right next to where the person works is not as easy as it sounds. And so we see citizens throughout the San Diego region crisscrossing the region every day just to get to work and get back home. And so therefore, an improvement that might be made in Carlsbad might benefit the residents of Oceanside just as much as or more than it may benefit the residents of Oceanside or of Carlsbad, because the system shows that people are traveling all over our region to get to work and back.
So a single voter that may be voting for, say, mayor of Oceanside, even if only 2 people in the House are working, there may be 3 cities involved. Because
absolutely,
the one person may be working in Carlsbad, one in San Diego, and both live in Oceanside. So there's 3 cities.
Correct. And in that study that we did, the analysis we did, we also found that the jobs that reside in Oceanside, a bunch of those jobs are not being done by Oceanside residents. They're being done by residents from some other city that's coming to Oceanside to do the work. So there is a crisscrossing, and it really speaks to why the transportation system really needs to be a regional system, because even if you live in one place, you might need to get to another place, and you need the whole system to work, not just a piece in your city.
Do you think that politicians, the elected officials, who are traditionally not just trained to be parochial in order to get elected, but it's sort of the way our system is set up in the United States. It's we want local government because it's responsive to local issues. However, particularly in California, particularly in Southern California, this regional issue is becoming so pronounced. Do you think they're up to speed on that? Do you see people elected officials starting to get used to this and realizing that my constituents live here, work there, and go through 3 cities to get there, to do the commute?
I think that's a very, very good question, and I would start by saying that may be one of the beauties of an organization like SANDAG, because they all come together. You got all 18 cities and the county sitting at a big table talking about these issues. And so when I hear Mayor Matt Hall talk about the need to move goods and the number of trucks that are coming across the border every day, here's a mayor in North County and Carlsbad that has really learned a lot about and is up to speed on the fact that not only do we need to move people, but we need to move goods. And Mayor Hall's a great example of somebody that has listened and participated and worked at SANDAG, and he's very, very knowledgeable beyond the city of Carlsbad on these transportation issues. And so I do see that happening at the SANDAG board. Now, how they vote and how they get there, I mean, they're still going to be a little parochial, but I do get the sense that they're understanding this sort of regional piece a lot more. Why things like Transnet have been so important to be able to get some of these regional projects done. Improving I-5, it's not going to work if we just improve it in Oceanside, or if we just improve it in Carlsbad. It's got to be a system, and I really do think our board members get that.
We also, and we've been talking up to now about work, there's also a leisure implication, because that's literally how we advertise Southern California. You've got the beach and the football and the baseball and the skiing and the mountains and the desert. Well, there's no one city that has all of those. There's no one city that even has half of them. So our recreation is very regional as well.
Yeah, there's an area where, I think we live in one of the best places in the planet. I wouldn't trade San Diego to live any other place. I still think this is the best place to live. But a lot of people want to come visit us, and they want to come recreate here. When you're, and I travel to DC on a pretty regular basis, and in the middle of January, I'd much rather be in San Diego
Absolutely.
than I would be in Washington, DC. But I do think that in those areas, I think our tourist industry has been collaborating more with each other, because whether it's going to a concert at one of our casinos in the backcountry, or whether it's going to SeaWorld in San Diego, or whether it's going to Balboa Park, or it's going to Tijuana and the Mexican border, or whether it's coming to Legoland in Carlsbad. The tourist industry, I see them working better together and trying to market more together, so that when somebody comes to San Diego, the region, if you can get them to do more things, well, they're going to be here a little bit more longer, and they're going to spend more money, and that's actually pretty good for our economy.
Absolutely. So let's move on to some of the projects. Ultimately, all of this information that you gather is to understand what sort of project needs to be done, and then in turn to market that project. do fact-based marketing. So the major project is the North Coast Corridor, at least the major project that applies to our viewers here on North County Voice. Can you fill us in on exactly what that project is?
Yes, so the North Coast Corridor is really a comprehensive transportation project. So it's not just improving the freeway, but it's can we make the rail system better? Can we add an active transportation, a biking, walking experience that might help improve the quality of life? And it's also got an environmental component to it that says that one of the very special things in North County are the lagoons we have. And so how do we keep those lagoons healthy? How do we make sure that they're dredged and that they flush properly? Well, this project tries to bring all those pieces together. It's a long vision that will take, 2 or 3 decades to accomplish, but we plan to start the first phase later this year. On that first phase would add HOV lanes from where they end at Manchester all the way to the 78 in Oceanside, coming through Solana Beach, Encinitas, Carlsbad, all the way to Oceanside. And that's a really important add because, I-5 is probably one of our most important corridors in the region for trade, for business, for economic development, for just mobility of people and goods. And we haven't touched it in decades. Now it's been the size it's been, and the region has continued to grow, and so it is in much need of a little bit of expansion. But at the same time, we're also expanding the rail corridor. And on the rail corridor, John, it's important to note that the low sand corridors, we call it the rail corridor between Los Angeles and San Diego, today is the second busiest passenger rail corridor in the country. It's right behind the Northeast corridor between Boston, New York, and DC. And one of the weak links in our rail corridor is this piece in San Diego. A bunch of it's only has a single track. And so, we're trying to do probably way too much with one set of tracks. We got freight trains going through there. We got commuter trains going through there. We got intercity trains going through that. And so we've been working at double tracking it. And we started a few years ago where literally half of the rail line between Los Angeles and San Diego was single tracked, most of that in San Diego County. Today, the piece in San Diego County, we're at about 66% double tracked. And our goal is to get to 100% to give people, other choices as to how they get. So the North Coast Corridor does that. It also invests in starting to build a bike network, what we call a coastal rail trail that will allow another mode of transportation parallel to the freeway and parallel to the track. And last but not least, we make some big investments in trying to improve our lagoons. And San Elijo Lagoon is part of the first phase to really restore that lagoon and make it healthy and make it vibrant again.
Is there a targeted start date for this?
So we're using a new delivery process. It's called CMGC, Construction Management General Contractor. And what's different about that process is instead of just low bid, it's best value. Mm-hmm. And so we're working with Caltrans, our partners on this. We're in the process of negotiating that best value contract to get the contractor started, and we're very optimistic that before the end of this year, we'll be building stuff on I-5.
Does the road typically start this, as opposed to the railroad or the bikes or the lagoon? Or?
Yes, we're doing both, and of interest and importance, particularly the lagoons, the bridges, is getting into the lagoons once, getting it done once, both for the road and the railroad project. I think it's cost effective because one contractor working on both bridges, one impact to the lagoon. And so that's kind of where we start. Probably the critical pieces are the bridges, because you can widen the roads, but if you can't get over the lagoons, we still have choke points, right? Mm-hmm. So that's where we hope to start, and start building from really the south to the north and give North County a better system than they have today on I-5.
Okay, well, Gary, it's time for our break. When we come back, we'll talk more about this massive project. We are going to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll talk more about regional transportation in San Diego County.
Imagine a time when no one person has Parkinson's disease, is debilitated by a stroke, and no family suffers the tragedy of Alzheimer's. Some of the best minds in America are doing more than imagining. The American Brain Foundation is seeking to find cures, where life without brain disease isn't just something we can imagine, it's something we can know. Help us get there.
Everybody has a dream. Mine was to see the ocean. And with a little help, I made it.
Hi, welcome back to North County Voice. We are talking about transportation in San Diego County. Gary, let's flesh out the North Coast Corridor project a little bit more. So where we left it was it's going to start from Manchester basically and work its way north.
Yes.
And tell us about what we can expect in terms of what we're going to see as we drive through there.
So the first piece will be to extend those HOV lanes north all the way to Oceanside. But key is getting across the lagoons, San Elijo, Buena Vista, Bataquitos. And so while we're doing this work, we're widening the bridges, but also doing restoration to the lagoons to make them healthy. And at the same time, we're going to be double tracking and increasing the width of the bridges on the low sand corridor to try to get more of that double track, try to make that rail line work more efficient, have it be more reliable. One of the downsides to this very busy rail line today is because of the single track. Trains got to stop and wait for one train to go by before the other train can move ahead. It's a really good thing to do.
Yeah.
And so with this double tracking piece, they won't be able to do that. So we'll be able to get our trains to be more efficient, more on time, and more reliable. There's also a whole host of active transportation bike projects that we're building in. We're working on some projects right now in Encinitas to give people another option, so you can either drive, carpool, ride your bike, or ride the train.
I think, and I don't recall, this might have been a year or two ago, the last time we talked about this issue, the double track issue, I recall that SANDAG has done research into living residential density and things like apartments. I assume you still do that and you're looking at trends in that area. Are we seeing more people locate near rail centers, near railroad stations specifically?
It's what we call transit-oriented development. So can you take the transit and use it as a catalyst to develop maybe more densely? I think we're seeing some pieces of that in San Diego. But it's slower. I mean, I think the land mass and the way we grew up in this county over the last 20 or 30 years is we stretched out. And now, we're starting to see, instead of, there's not as much room to grow out, so we're starting to see the region starting to grow up. And I think it's when we grow up that those rail corridors become really important. And we're starting to see signs of that.
Along the way, one of the rail issues that comes up from time to time are the quiet issues. Is that part of this project, or is that a completely separate issue?
That's a separate issue, but one of the things that we're contemplating in a potential new sales tax measure is to provide funding to do that kind of stuff, so you can put quiet zones. We're also looking at on the rail corridor, looking at some strategic grade separations. There are definitely conflicts at many of our very busy streets where you have trains conflicting with the roads that go over them, and if we're going to put more trains and we're going to put more cars, the conflict's going to get bigger. So the way to solve that conflict is to separate them, right? So have the railroad track either go under or over the road, or the road go over under the track. And so we hope to be able to do a series of those in North County that will help our train and our road system work better.
Well, you brought up the funding issue, so let's move on to that. There's a additional half cent on the sales tax measure. So educate us about the need for this.
Okay.
And how it might play out in terms of impacting the quality and, even more importantly, the speed of getting these projects done.
So our board of directors adopted a long-range plan in October of last year. That long-range plan calls for about a $204 billion investment region-wide. But the financial component to that includes state funds, federal funds, and local funds. And the local funds have become even more important because you need those to match the state and federal funds, or you can't get those. And so what this measure that the boards voted on to put on the ballot would do would increase our sales tax by 0.5%, would generate about $18 billion over a 40-year period. But what would allow us to do in North County specifically is it would allow us to advance adding HOV lanes on the 78 corridor and improving the connections both on 15 and 5. Arguably the connection between 78 and 15, or 5, excuse me, in North County and here in Oceanside, probably one of the worst we have in the region. You got to stop and make a left-hand turn at a signal to get on a freeway. All that would be fixed, so there'd be direct freeway connectors to direct freeway connectors. We would advance the second lane on I-5. The idea is ultimately to put 2 HOV lanes in each direction. That second project would be advanced 10, 20, 30 years. Would do things like providing a train stop at the Del Mar Fairgrounds. There have been many San Diegans have probably over the course of history gone to enjoy the fair in Del Mar at the Del Mar Fairgrounds and fought with the parking. Well, this would give somebody another choice to be able to ride the train.
That's a particularly tough place to get to by car.
Yeah, it's not easy to get to. This would give us another alternative. Would advance some of those grade separations that I talked about earlier. Carlsbad, for example, has been working and talking about possibly trenching some of the rail corridor in their city to allow their downtown to grow and prosper. And
would Solana Beach be an example of that?
So it'd be the stuff that Oceanside's thinking about is kind of like Solana Beach, exactly. Yeah. And as a way to help the downtown in Oceanside, or excuse me, Carlsbad, grow. And so this measure would allow us to advance a lot of that, would allow us to continue to improve the railroad track. One of the weaknesses on our railroad track is the bluff at Del Mar. So this program would allow funds to be able to stabilize those bluffs at Del Mar to ensure that our rail system going down to San Diego continues to work in a safe and productive way. So the measure would increase people's taxes, but it would be for very specific things that are in the measure. And in North County, what it would do is advance a lot of these projects.
Is the Camp Pendleton Station part of that?
Yeah, so that's thank you for reminding me of that. There's one of the ads that's in our plan, but without any funds, is to extend the coaster all the way into Camp Pendleton and give our Marines another way to get into the system. It would connect with the rail system we have today. A kind of a military connection is a light rail station. A line that we're building right now would provide a light rail stop at the Veterans Hospital in UTC, and so this line would connect with that line to make it all work.
Okay. Can you give us an idea in terms of years? You say move forward, and I realize this has to be a guess, but give me a what if. I mean, if this doesn't pass, it's this number of years, and if it does, it's this. What? So
if we weren't successful with the measure, then you take up a quarter like 78. Because of financial constraints, we would have to build it in small pieces. And so we'd probably have to choose to improve the intersection at 5 and 78, or do we do it at 15 and 78? And you'd probably do that. That project would probably take 3 or 4 years to build. In the meantime, hopefully you're saving up to do another project after that. And we would build 78 in a bunch of small pieces, with the latter pieces probably being as late as 2040 or 2050, 30 years from now.
I can't wait that long. That caused a lot of frustration.
I don't want to wait that long myself, so that's why.
I can't help but remember when 76 was the interchange with the 5 was renovated. And it was a pretty big event, it was grand opening. Yep. And I think I was there that afternoon or the next day, and I'm just cruising on that exit, and I get on there, and there's a traffic light within seconds. And my mind was rebelling. It was like, this can't be a traffic light.
I remember the day.
After all this to do, right? But, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars a foot. right? And when we get to an interchange, we're talking about millions of dollars.
Yeah, and in that example, there's a big difference between what we call controlled access, which our freeways are controlled access, which means you bought all the access rights, so you can only get on and off at the ramps. And 76, which is what we call more of a conventional road with all the curbs and cuts, and it's easy for people to get on and off of 76. Makes it easy to get on and off, but doesn't make it as efficient as a freeway. And you got to have traffic stops at the intersections, and so different kind of route, but also way difference in cost, right? So if you wanted to access control 76, it'd be pretty expensive.
So let's revisit for a bit the issue of the matching. Can you bring it down to as simplistic a level that a dollar's worth of this half cent brings in how much? How many dollars?
So maybe a good example is, what have we done with the dollars that the taxpayers already paid? And the first sales tax measure started in 1987, and it was renewed again in 2004. So we've had, till now, since 88 to now is the time that we've been collecting sales tax. We've collected about $3.3 billion. But that $3.3 billion is leveraged in another 10 from either state or federal or other sources. And those $13.3 billion have allowed us to complete 650 projects region-wide during that time.
So that's a 3-to-1 in effect.
So looking back, we've been pretty successful at trying to use these local dollars to get federal dollars or state dollars. Jack, what I would share that's even more important today is that everybody's budgets have shrunk over time, and demands have gone up as our population has grown. And both at the state and federal level, more of the dollars are more competitive. You got to go compete for them. So we're competing against the LAs, the Houstons, the New Yorks. The light rail line extension in San Diego we're doing right now is a perfect example. It's a $2 billion project. $1 billion of that is coming from local dollars, but the other $1 billion is coming from the feds. And we could have never gotten the $1 billion from the feds if we didn't have the first $1 billion to match it. And so these matching dollars are becoming more and more critical. In terms of not only helping us advance our transportation system, but also being able to leverage other dollars. So if we don't have the local dollar, very often not only cost us a local dollar, it could cost us 2 or 3 state or federal dollars that we don't get.
If people want to know more than we have time to talk about here in our 30 minutes, which is, by the way, just about up, we have about a minute or 2 left, how can they learn more? Do you have an educational website that will fill people in on details?
Yes, we got a SanDiegoMoving.com or just sandag.org. The 650 projects we've done, for example, there's a story page on our webpage that maps out all 650 projects. And you want to know, you drag a mouse over it and you want to know when we started, when we finished that project, how much it cost and what it accomplished. All that stuff's on our webpage, and we would encourage the public to take a look or give us a call.
Well, Gary, I want to thank you for telling us what's going on at SANDAG. Here in California, we live in cars and we spend a lot of time on the road. Glad you guys are doing research and helping to make that as efficient and effective as possible. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And thanks for watching North County Voice. This North County Voice and most other KOCT shows are available as video on demand at koct.org. Thanks for watching.
HBL Hair Care, healthy ingredients for healthy hair. Enhance health, reveal natural beauty, and give new life to your hair. Experience the holistic difference of HBL Hair Care.